So, talking about giving back at some point, you went back at a particular time to teach. And when was this? And was that a culture that was common to old boys going back to Igbobi to come and teach current students?
Okay, it was, I think, 19, if I remember correct, I think it was about 1984, 85, and probably 86, probably 85, 86. Um, at that time, Mr. Ojitiku was principal at Igbobi,
Okay.
and they did not have teachers to teach mathematics in the higher school, in upper six particularly, to prepare them for the
Exam.
exam, for the external exam. And they appealed to all students through the Old Boys Association
Okay.
meeting. And I had had the privilege of being taught by some old students when I was
Okay.
in lower six
Okay.
at Igbobi. Um, we did not have teachers for pure maths and applied maths. And some lecturers at University of Lagos who were old boys of Igbobi, Dr. Adenubi, Dr. Oyebode,
Okay.
and Dr. Onodeko were coming to teach us pure maths and applied maths
Okay.
at the time. And so that was an example to me of old boys
Okay.
giving back to the school. You know, they
Okay.
were teaching it for free. It wasn't a paid.
Job.
So I volunteered. I met Mr. Ojutiku, and he, so I decided to go and help, and I did do that for 2 years. I remember I did it for 2 years. I would go usually so about, because our lectures at Unilag then would last until probably 1 o'clock,
Okay.
2 o'clock.
Right.
In the afternoon, I didn't really have lectures. I had labs
Okay.
to run with the students. So on the afternoons when I didn't have labs, I had time. So that was when I would go and teach, usually about 2 hours, twice a week or something like that. What I did. And I helped prepare the students for their exams for their work, higher school certificate exams in those years. I stopped in 86 because I went on sabbatical to the UK. So that was when I stopped.
I see. And what was the experience like, having to, now as an old boy, I have come to give back, how did you feel?
Well, I mean, I was very familiar with Igbobi, having lived Igbobi College compound from 1963 to 69 when I went away, and then when I used to came back for holidays, and in fact when I finally came back to Nigeria in 76, even though my father had retired as principal then, he was still living at Igbobi College in the sort of annex to the principal's house on the other side. So that was where I stayed first when I came back from England. I stayed with my parents there before I was able to get a house of my own. I moved out, and also my parents moved to their own house in where's that place called now? Ifako. Because so
Yes, I get you.
yes, it was So during that 1 year after he retired, he was completing the building at that time. That's why they couldn't move immediately. But as soon as it was completed, they moved. But by that time, I had already moved to Ilukweju, my own house at that time. Yeah.
I see.
So,
and before we get to, so after leaving and then, going to lecturing, the Akoba, was it functional then, your set group? When did people come back together to?
Yes, when I came back to Nigeria in the late 70s, I think the set, I met group of our sets used to meet. We used to meet in each other's houses at that time. We used to take turns to host the sets. So that's what we used to do. There was we used to meet every month, and we rotated the meetings, to different places, and we were quite a close-knit group. And I remember us celebrating, I don't know whether it was 20 years of living in Igbobi, or was it 20 or 25? I can't remember now, but it was in the 80s, so it would have been probably 25 years or something. We invited the former principal, that is my father, to the occasion. I think it was held in Kennedy Smith's house in Palm Grove at the time. He used to live in Palm Grove at the time. So we invited him, and yes, I took him actually, because he always stays with me. He was based in Elisha then, so whenever I came to Lagos, he would always stay with me. And yes, so we did, I'm not sure what we did at that, but we did a project at Igbobi that year. And yes, it was a good celebration. Many of our sets who were in Nigeria were there. Most were there, yeah. So we have always been a close-knit group. For some years, obviously, I did not attend since I was in England when I came to England. But whenever I was in Nigeria, if I was in Nigeria when they were having a meeting, I always went to the meeting. It was always good to meet up with, and I had close friends and colleagues who are members of my set. Professor Denloye, who was at Unilag, and also Professor Ebidapobe, who was former Vice Chancellor of DC, were very close friends of mine. So one of them would pick me up and take me to the meeting. So yeah, it was always a joyous occasion to meet with members of the class. And this continued, I think, right up until COVID. Because they were not then meeting every month. They were meeting maybe a few months, 2 months, 3 months. I think the last one that I attended was actually at Professor Ebitapo's Obe's house in Lekki. The last one I attended, which was a physical meeting before COVID. And then when COVID came, we started a Zoom group, which has been going on ever since. Occasionally now they have a physical meeting. We try also to have a celebration when the occasion arises. I think few years ago in 2020, 2022, we had we celebrated 60 years of entering Igbobi.
Wow, 60.
60, because that was 62 to 2022.
Wow.
Was made 60 years when our set first entered Igbobi. So we celebrated that. We invited everybody, and also families of our late classmates to come and join us in that. We had that at Igbobi College, actually, in the hall. It was a very successful occasion. So yes, we always like to get together whenever we can, but the Zoom meeting goes on, and there are some regulars, although we're not that many. But the one thing that is important is that many of our members are engaged, very well engaged in our WhatsApp group. They post things, and I remember when Engineer Larry Phillips died earlier this year, that actually everybody made a contribution towards a donation to the family, for the funeral.
Engineer Larry Phillips is a senior brother of
Yes, Folusho Phillips, who was president of ICOBA and now chairman of the board of governors.
Was it your set?
Engineer Phillips was in our set, yes, and Folusho Phillips was 2 years behind us. Yes.
You talked about going back to the Igbobi days.
Yeah.
You said the IC was very competitive in literary and debating, and other
in sports.
In the debating, who were the competitors? Who were the rivals?
Well, some of the star debaters that we had in those days, I can point to Olaide Adigun, who was the senior prefect in my set. H.O. Davis, who was also in my set, and actually he lives here in Birmingham. He's a lawyer. Olaide Adigun was a lawyer too. He was unfortunately he died very, very quite young. He was an associate professor in law at University of Lagos when he died. A very, very bubbly character, fantastic person. Then there was Momo. I forgot his first name now. He was some years ahead of us. There was also Amma. He was also in our set. Those are some of the names I remember who represented Igbobi College in the intercollegiate debating competitions.
Which schools? Which schools were the main rivals? Any particular
Igbobi, King's College, generally. Those were the top two schools at that time. I think to some extent maybe St. Gregory's. But Igbobi was very prominent. I think we won that competition several times during my time at Igbobi.
That's the literary and debating cup competition.
What
about athletics? You also mentioned
athletics. Yes, we won I remember winning the Greer Cup. The Greer Cup was the premier athletic competition in which covered the old Western region, Midwest region, and Lagos. In those days, the major schools who used to win in those times was Government College Ugeli, Yoruba College Warri, Government College Ibadan, Igbobi, King's College. We were great rivals. It was Greer Cup was very difficult to win, but we won it twice during my time at Igbobi in 1963 and I think 1960, either 66 or 67.
And this consisted of many athletic events.
Yes, it consisted of all the athletic events, from 100 yards to 1 mile, the jumps and the sprint, throws, and the throws. Yes. And basically, you score points for each position. I think if you came first, you got a number of points, and the second a number of points, and the points were tallied at the end of all the competition for whichever school had the highest number of points. I think in 1963 we won it by 1 point from Ugeli.
Just 1 point?
Just the 1 point.
Wow.
Yes, and the stars at that time, if I remember, were Sidney Asiodu, who was a sprinter, and Ebuche. Ebuche, also a sprinter. I think in the finals of the 100 meters, they came first and third. 200. We had very few you see, because they had zones. First of all, when you do the zonal competitions, the first 3 in each event would qualify for the finals, for the finals. So we had only a few athletes that actually went to the finals, but they were all top. Asiodu, you had Eguche, then we had our relay team, which consisted of Asiodu, Eguche, Ogedegbe, and Rena. Then we had Eboma, who was pole vault. Senior Eboma, who was pole vault, and I think he had some. I think maybe through the shot put as well. We had Akusu, who was 800 yards and 1 mile, and Asiodu, of course, also did long jump, and he was really good. He even did high jump, but I don't think he was. But we had just these few athletes who scored enough points for us to win in that year. And then I think in 66 we also won. Some of the athletes I remember in those days were included Okuribido, shot put and discus. Egbe, that's 400 yards. I'm thinking now. Adeyemi, 100 yards. And our relay team, which consisted of Adeyemi, Ogunbiyi, also 400 meters and sprint. And I can't remember, but we won that year as well. And we won it at the last event, which was the relay. We won the relay, and that was gave us the edge.
And just by 1 point.
Yeah, I can't remember how many points we won by 66. But in 63, yes, we won by 1 point.
Wow.
But yeah, that was at Liberty Stadium.
Ibadan.
Was where the finals were held.
Wow.
Yeah.
The 63 was it at Ibadan as well, or
I think
Lagos?
No, I think that was at Ugeli actually.
Okay, wow.
I believe that was at Ugeli.
Okay. And was there always a good contingent that went, or just
to watch?
Yeah.
Well, for the 66, certainly a good contingent went to watch, but I don't think many people went to watch the 63 one, because Ugeli was far away.
That's right.
So there was,
considering what he wrote.
But it was great when they came back, when the news broke at Igbobi. It was quite
those days. Was there telephone until they came back?
No, there was well, there was telephone, but
not
the only telephone in Igbobi at that time was in the principal's house or principal's office.
The circular one,
yeah,
the black
that's
one.
right, the black one. Yeah,
that's interesting. How about the Principal's Cup, the football?
Principal's Cup, while we were there, was always heartache. 63, we got to the final. And we were beaten 2-1 by, I think, CMS Grammar School. Then in 68, which was my last year at Igbobi, we were captained by now Dr. Ilugbadebo, was my classmate. We had Martins, the famous Tunde Martins, who was quite something else. Aribede, Kunle Aribede was our center forward. I remember. We were leading 2-0. I think it was St. Fimbas. And they came back to beat us 3-2. Almost in the final minutes. It was just a heartbreak.
Definitely, I can imagine.
It was a heartbreak for us, to lose.
With 2 goals ahead.
2 goals ahead to come and lose 3-2. It was, it was. But some years later, I am proud to have been at the stadium when we won the Principal's Cup for the first time. Well, I left Igbobi. At that time, I was teaching our Unilab then, and we got to the final.
That's right.
And I was actually there that year when we won it. I don't know the names of the students, but I didn't care. The fact that we actually won it was we always had a reasonably good team, but we had these teams like Zumratu, and St. Fimbas particularly, who would St. Gregory's, who would beat us. Many times we got to semi-final, we didn't get to final, and but finally we won it. I think, if I remember now, I think it must have been probably, I think it was probably either 80 or 81 or something. Around about that time when we finally won it.
Okay. I thought it was more recent because I got in 78.
Well, maybe we have won it again since then.
Probably. Yeah, it must have been in the latter, because when I got in 78, myself got in 78.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, probably they won it. I don't remember. We didn't win throughout my time there, so it's probably
78. No, it's probably 78. Can't be.
But I remember then that the culture was something else. From one, then there would be bus. I don't know whether you had it then, that would carry us to USC.
Yes, we always used to rent LMTS bus to take us to the stadium.
Yeah, so I met there from one. there'll be bus that will convey us to USC there, and the atmosphere when there was a match was always very, very carnival-like. I don't know whether it must have dated back to
It was. That was
to your time.
Yes, that was when this Shekewa started.
Okay.
When we sing, we are the boys of the great IC.
Yes.
We are the boys of the ICI. Homeless, domino, all I want in the Lord.
Yeah.
And then when they finished singing the song, they say, up UPIC, up IC.
Yeah.
Say.
Yeah. It was always very.
Shekewa.
It was always very, very. I remember then in the. They were like bullet. Was it municipal? But I know there'll be school buses that were there.
Yes, we used to have municipal buses in those days.
Yeah.
The municipal bus was very much operational in those days. I think over the years, the Molues took over from the Lagos, the LMTS buses.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, but we used to have the LMTS buses red like this.
Yeah, that's right.
To take us to the stadium.
Okay.
It was at the Onikon Stadium that we used to play in those days.
I think we met USC at Surulere.
Okay,
I don't know whether
that was. I think that was later on.
Yeah, whether I don't think they were no longer Principal's Cup had shifted to the USC,
opposite the National Stadium.
Yes,
they call Taslim Balogun.
Yeah, the name has changed.
Stadium. Yes, that was after our time. Yeah.
Then the academics there is, you seem to have quite a number of professors that you have mentioned. Did you always set out to be shifting ground now? Did you always set out to be a prof, or just along the line? Were there targets at Igbobi?
I did not intend to go into academics, actually. I wanted to be an engineer.
Okay.
And I wanted to practice engineering. That was what I intended to do.
Okay.
When I was doing my PhD here in Birmingham, I did a project with what was then the British Leyland.
Okay.
And at that time they were just starting. British Leyland were just establishing a manufacturing facility in Ibadan.
Okay.
You remember the Leyland truck?
And bus, yes. I think I remember the name.
Yeah. And so when I was going to Nigeria, they gave me a recommendation to the Leyland truck and bus thing in Ibadan. So when I got to Nigeria, although I had already been offered a job at University of Ife.
Okay.
I was more interested in working in industry than working in university.
Right.
So I went to Leyland in Ibadan. I saw the general manager, who was there, and gave him the letter of recommendation that I had from the, and he looked and he saw my CV and he said to me that really he would like to give me a job, but he didn't think that the job that they would give me would be satisfactory. He said what we're looking for here are people who will supervise the production, you're not doing any research or anything here. We're not even designing anything. We're just assembling and things like that. So he said he didn't think that would satisfy me on the, as a job in terms of job satisfaction and things. So he thought, that wasn't really what I should be looking at. So that's how come I didn't get a job there. I ended up at University of Lagos. That is another story why I didn't join University of Ife. But anyway, I went to see Professor Awojobi, who was head of mechanical.
The same late Professor Ayodele Awojobi.
Yes, he was head of mechanical engineering at University of Lagos then, and I went to see him, and it happened that his expertise is very related to mine in vibrations. Although mine was specifically vibrations in motor vehicles. So we had a great discussion. We just talked for, I think we talked for about 30 minutes, which I was surprised that he had enough time to give me for 30 minutes. And we just discussed vibrations in general. And at the end he said, go and bring 10 copies of your CV, and I would recommend that they give you a position in the department as a lecturer. They said it would be temporary at first, and then they would do a proper interview later on along the lines. And so that's how I got a job at Unilag. I went and brought the CVs, and he said, just wait for a letter to come from personnel. He said, I don't know how long it will take them because they work at their own pace. I can't, but I recommend recommendation to them, and and that was it. I got the letter sometime in December 76, and I joined Unilag. And once I joined and I started, I enjoyed it. And once you are into an academic position, obviously you want to get to the top, and getting to the top means becoming a professor. So that's what everybody works towards, to become a professor. So that's how come I became a professor. It's not anything. I enjoyed teaching. I actually enjoyed teaching. Especially, I enjoyed teaching our students in Nigeria. I think my interaction with Nigerian students was much better than I did with students here in Birmingham, because they were respectful. They were, they listened. They were interested in what you were teaching, and and so yes, I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed research more. The only problem was that in Nigeria we didn't have the research facilities, so I always used to come back to Birmingham in the summer to work with my former supervisor. And when eventually I moved to the UK to teach, I first started working in the Automotive Engineering Center. Most of my work was research based, and I managed the center in terms of the actual work that was done in the laboratories. My boss was the director, and he managed the administration and so on. But in terms of the actual research that we did, I was the one who did the work on the ground with all the associates and researchers that were working with us. It was later on that I was appointed a lecturer, and later on became the head of the laboratory in the automotive engineering laboratory at Birmingham. I enjoyed the research, but I enjoyed the teaching as well. But the students, the English students, were not always as attentive as the you always found that it was the overseas students who were attentive, who wanted, some of the English students were not that bothered, especially at that time in the early days. They had grants to come to university.
Okay,
They didn't have to pay for it themselves. They didn't pay, so it didn't that matter.
Matter to them.
I mean, I had occasion to send, only on one occasion, to send two students out of my class because they were talking during my class, and they were just sat at the back and they were talking to each other, and I stopped because they seemed to be unaware of what was going on, that they were disturbing everybody, and I stopped
for them to correct themselves,
and they just kept on. So I had to tell them that if they didn't want to be in the class, it doesn't matter to me. It's better for them to stay away than to disturb those
the others
who wanted to listen to my lecture. So I also remember in the early days of the mobile phone, there was a particular chap who those brick phones, if you remember.
Nokia,
I don't know what it was, but it was
quite
big. Yes, like a brick. He was the first person that I knew that I had, and he used to bring. One day he had it in class, and it rang.
That is here, right?
Yes, and he was sitting in the class, and the phone rang, and he rang, and he went to pick up, and I said to him, "You're not going to answer that, are you?" And he cut it off.
Is it a Nigerian?
No, it was an English boy. He was going to answer it, but when I said, are you going to answer that? He did. But actually, he later became my very good friend, as it happens. But he was a rascal. He was just a rascal. He was one of those boys from probably a rich family, because I could not afford a mobile phone. It was many years later before I even got my first mobile phone.
So he was one of the pioneers.
Yeah, but yes, I enjoyed the one-on-one that I had with research students who were working with me. And also, the teaching I enjoyed most was when I was teaching on a master's program for engineers from industries. These were engineers who are working in industry, and they were coming in to do some courses with us for towards a master. And teaching them was different from teaching undergraduates, because these are people who are working in the field of, so it was, you gave some lectures. Yes, they were there to pick up some theoretical, but they also had practical experience, and we would talk about how they solve some particular problems, and they would make contribution, and that I found very rewarding and very, very interesting. And so it was a way for them also to exchange ideas and exchange information on how they tackled problems in their own company and things like that, which was quite interesting compared to undergraduates who had no practical experience. So teaching there was different. Yes, but my interest was more towards the research side, but I did enjoy the teaching side as well.
Right. So Prof. Since I know one of the things which we remember most, myself at least, we remember the culture of the SDF. Sometimes when we do Christmas party, we have a particular amount which we give to charity. Were there some takeaways from being an Igbobian since you left? Were there any things which probably you are still making use now, which was, dates back to Igbobi?
Well, SDF in those days was a very competitive thing, because the SDF at that time was whichever class contributed the most, in
right.
that week got the SDF shield.
Yeah, I remember.
And we had our form tutor at that time, Mr. Sage. He used to teach history as well.
Okay.
Was very, very particular. He would find somebody for not being in the class when he came in. He would, anything he would find, and also, of course, we would contribute. He encouraged us to contribute. So we won the SDF Shield quite a number of times when I was in Form 3, particularly when Mr. Sage, he encouraged us to give. And it's something that obviously became a habit.
Okay.
It became a habit. I remember when we started meeting as a class, anybody who came late had to pay a fine, which went to SDF, which we gave to charity at the end of the end of the year. But not only that, it's developed in myself, as an individual, the act of giving. Contributing to charity, contributing to Igbobi College, and things like that. So it's I would say it's an attitude that was nurtured whilst we were at Igbobi, which obviously when you acquire an attitude, it goes with you for the rest of your life. And I think that is probably one of the best things that Igbobi College gave to us as young men, to give. The art of giving,
Though you've mentioned this before, but if you were to pick, let's say, 2 occasions which you are most proud or that you remembered most, and then a second one which something, it might not be, but it's just memorable, even though it might not be the best, but can you remember 2 instances at school which you felt this event, even if they tap you now,
Well, okay. I'm not going to go into about what I'm most proud. If we're talking about maybe things that I was most proud of, was probably prize giving day, when I got some prizes at the prize giving day. But 2 incidents that stick in my mind as Igbobi College, there are 2 incidents. One is the Dodo riot of Dodo riot, was it 1964?
Really? Dodo riot?
You've never heard of Dodo riot?
No, I'm hearing for the first time.
Okay. Dodo riot was it's for those people who are in Igbobi around the late 70s or 60s, 70s, they would have heard of the Dodo riot, although they were not. Most of them were not there. They were not there. But I remember at the first retreat that was organized by Ikoba Europe. It was then Ikoba UK. It used to be called Ikoba UK before it became Ikoba Europe. I was invited to give a talk about Igbobi College.
Okay.
And that was one of the things that I mentioned. And a lot of people told me that they had heard about Dodoraya, but they didn't know
the genesis of the history. So
okay. The genesis of Dodoraya goes like this. In the 50s and 60s, Igbobi College was in Western region.
Okay.
Lagos was island,
okay,
and mainland up to Yaba.
Mm-hmm.
From Fadeyi upwards and things like that, Mushin, Isolo, and all of those were part of Western region.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
They were part of Western region. So Igbobi was in Western region. So at that time, Igbobi was able to charge, Western region did not specify what, because Igbobi was a private school. So they didn't control the fees that Igbobi College would charge.
Okay.
So fees at Igbobi College were fairly expensive at that time. Although the school always said that that should not be a deal breaker for any student who got into Igbobi by merit. That so if a student was not able to pay, the parents were not able to pay, there was always a way in which the school would subsidize the school fees of the student. So that was the case. So Igbobi, at that time, you go to the dining hall, the food was plenty. On Sunday, they would have, I think each student had either a quarter of a chicken with their rice, on Sunday afternoon. And, you got meat with every meal. And, the food at Igbobi then was really good.
That's on top of the quarter of the chicken.
Sorry? Yes, every meal was, but Sunday was special in the sense that you got this quarter of a chicken for lunch for each student. But then Lagos State was created. When they did, I think they created Midwest or Bendel State.
That was when Nigeria became 12 states?
Yes, I think. Was that or before? I think even, probably. Anyway, Lagos State was created.
Okay.
I think this was 60. I think it was either 60. I think it must have been 1964. It was. Okay, so Igbobi now came under Lagos State. And Lagos State said you cannot charge more than a certain amount. So the fees at Igbobi College went down. What Igbobi could charge. And so they had to make some economies. The school had to make economies in terms of, making the money that was paid to go to go around to sustain the school. Yeah. So they did some cuts. And one of the things that they did was to cut they make some economies in the food that was provided in the dining hall. So I think the first time that they did this, the meal for the evening was dodo. But there was no meat in it. Dodo without meat. So I was at home, obviously, and my father was in the office. The principal's office was at the bottom of the principal's residence. I don't know whether you met it like that when you came
I
to
think
Igbobi, whether you
I've,
had moved.
I forgot, but I know it was the same building.
Okay,
I think. Yes,
yes, it was down. So my dad always used to just move from the office to the house back to the office in the evening. When he came back, there was always work to do in the evening. Even when he came back there were parents coming to see him in the office, or parents who wanted their child to come to Igbobi would come and see him. So he hardly spent much time in the house itself, until he was going to sleep. So anyway, suddenly I think my brother and I, we were in the sitting room, and then we had this noise, and some group of students were coming. And I say,
towards the house, right?
Towards the house. And they say, Dodo, without me, this, that, and... So my dad came out of the office, and we came out of the kitchen, faced that quadrangle in front of the principal's office. So we came out of that, of the kitchen to see what was going on. And they came. And then my father came out of the office, and he asked what was the matter, and there was this chap, Okwesa was his name. I think Okwesa was probably in Form 5 then, if I remember. And he came and he said, "How can we do without meat?" And the next thing he said, "Will you give your children Dodo without meat?"